My shadow moved 3 seconds before I did. That's how it started, on a rainy Tuesday in my cramped apartment on the edge of the city. The streetlights flickered outside, casting long, jagged silhouettes across the walls. I was alone, or so I thought, staring at the cracked mirror in the hallway. My reflection blinked out of sync, just a fraction too soon. I rubbed my eyes, blaming the late-night coffee and the endless grind of freelance work. But deep down, a chill settled in my bones, like fingers tracing my spine. It was the kind of unease that lingers, making you question the reliability of your own senses, the boundaries between what you see and what might be lurking just beyond perception. I paused there, hand on the mirror's edge, wondering if exhaustion was playing tricks or if something more insidious had taken root in the quiet corners of my life, perhaps echoing those faint, unexplained drafts that seemed to whisper secrets from the walls themselves. The first incident unfolded slowly, like fog creeping in from the harbor. It was supernatural, or at least that's what I told myself later. I'd always been skeptical. Ghosts and spirits were for movies, not for a guy like me pushing 30, buried in deadlines. That night, after the shadow glitch, I tried to shake it off by heading to the kitchen for a beer. The floorboards creaked under my feet, but as I passed the window, I saw it. My outline on the wall, stretching unnaturally tall, its edges fraying like smoke. I froze. The rain pattered harder, drowning out the hum of the fridge. When I turned on the light, it snapped back to normal. Coincidence, right? Shadows play tricks in dim rooms. Yet, as I stood there with the cold bottle in hand, I couldn't help but reflect on how such simple explanations often mask deeper mysteries. Much like the urban legends I'd heard of shadows detaching in abandoned warehouses, tales dismissed as tall stories until they hit close to home. I'd read stories of hauntings in old houses, but this was my modern, sterile apartment. No history, no ghosts. Or so I thought. The doubt planted that seed, growing quietly as I sipped my beer, the rain a constant reminder of isolation, gently easing me into a state of watchful anticipation. But the escalation came the next morning. I woke to sunlight slicing through the blinds, my shadow pinned to the bed like a dark twin. As I sat up, it lingered a beat too long, curling at the edges as if reluctant to follow. Paranoia? Maybe. I laughed it off while brushing my teeth, but in the mirror, there it was again, moving independently, tilting its head while mine stayed still. My heart hammered. I slammed the light switch, flooding the bathroom in harsh fluorescence. It vanished, but the unease stuck, a low buzz in my chest. Throughout the day, as I tried to focus on emails and revisions, my mind wandered back to that moment. What if shadows weren't just absences of light, but echoes of something else, residual energies, perhaps, or fragments of the self detached and wandering? I recalled a childhood memory of playing with flashlights, making shadow puppets. Innocent fun that now felt foreboding, especially when I thought of how those playful shapes could twist into menacing forms under the right angle of light. The transition from skepticism to subtle fear was seamless, each incident building on the last like layers of a thickening veil, drawing me inexorably toward an acceptance of the unnatural. By evening, the tension built to a peak. I was working late, the laptop screen the only glow in the room. Words blurred as I typed, but peripheral vision caught movement. My shadow on the desk lamp's beam detached, slinking across the wall like spilled ink. It reached toward my hand, fingers elongating, brushing the air inches from my skin. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. I jumped back, knocking over my chair. The shadow recoiled, snapping back to my feet, but not before I felt it. A whisper of touch, icy and raw. I bolted the door, drew the curtains, and huddled under the blanket, listening to the rain mock my fear. In that huddled state, reflections flooded my mind. How the supernatural often starts with the familiar, twisting it into the uncanny, reminiscent of those Victorian ghost stories where household objects come alive with spectral intent. I dismissed tales of doppelgangers as folklore, but now, alone in the dark, I pondered if my shadow was a harbinger, a warning from the other side, its movements a subtle prelude to greater revelations. The night stretched on, each creak of the building amplifying the dread, transitioning me into a deeper wariness of the light itself, where even illumination felt like a fragile ally. In the quiet aftermath, I lay there reflecting on how ordinary life had twisted into something sinister. Was it the stress, or had I invited this in? The shadows seemed to watch me even in darkness, a silent promise of more to come. That was just the beginning. As dawn broke, pale light filtering through the curtains, I felt a fragile resolve to investigate, perhaps search online for similar experiences, but the fear held me back, a gentle reminder that some doors, once cracked open, refused to close easily, their hinges creaking with the weight of unspoken possibilities. 2 days later, I understood why the isolation gnawed deeper. I'd barricaded myself in, calling in sick to work, convinced the outside world would amplify whatever this was. The apartment felt smaller, walls pressing in like a coffin. That's when the creature horror took root. Not some monster from the closet, but something born from the ordinary, twisted into nightmare. The shift from supernatural unease to tangible terror was gradual, like the slow emergence of a predator from hiding, each moment building a sense of encroaching threat, as if the very air thickened with anticipation. It started with scratches, faint at first, like nails on wood, coming from under the bed while I tried to sleep. I told myself it was the building settling, pipes groaning in the night. But the sounds grew rhythmic, deliberate, syncing with my breaths. Isolation amplified everything. No neighbors to knock on the wall, no one to hear my whispers of doubt. I shone my phone's flashlight under the bed, nothing but dust bunnies and forgotten socks. Relief washed over me, short-lived. Lying there afterward, I reflected on how horror often preys on the unseen, the spaces we ignore, drawing parallels to classic tales like the scratching in the walls from Poe's works, where the mundane becomes a gateway to madness. Examples from old horror films came to mind, creatures lurking in basements or attics. But this felt personal, intimate, as if the apartment itself was birthing the fear, its foundations whispering forgotten grievances. The transition to nightfall brought a renewed vigilance. Every shadow under furniture now suspect, heightening the sensory overload. Escalation hit during a power outage that evening. Thunder rattled the windows, plunging the room into black. In the void, the scratches returned, closer now, accompanied by a wet, shuffling drag. My skin prickled, helplessness flooded in as I fumbled for candles. When the flames sputtered to life, shadows danced wildly, but one didn't belong. At the foot of the bed, a formless mass writhed, tendrils probing the air, drawn from the darkness like a living stain. It wasn't my shadow anymore. It hungered, eyes glinting like wet obsidian in the low light. The sight rooted me in place, mind racing with fragmented thoughts. Was this a manifestation of my fears, or something ancient stirred by my solitude? I thought of deep-sea creatures, adapted to abyssal dark, and wondered if this was kin to them, blind, relentless, emerging from neglect, much like the abyssal horrors described in submarine logs of unexplained depths. The climax shattered the night. As I backed against the wall, it lunged, a coil of inky flesh wrapping my ankle. Pain seared, cold and burning, like frostbite in reverse. I kicked free, grabbing a lamp to swing wildly. The creature recoiled with a hiss, dissolving into cracks in the floorboards, but not before its touch lingered, numbing my leg. I collapsed, gasping, the room spinning with adrenaline. In the heaving silence that followed, reflection came unbidden. How creatures in horror embody our primal fears, the unknown made flesh, evoking memories of childhood nightmares where beasts from under the bed clawed at reality's edges. The gentle transition to morning light offered no comfort. Instead, it highlighted the vulnerability of the familiar space, now tainted, casting long doubts over every corner. Resolution came in fragments of dawn light. I bandaged the mark, a bruise blooming black, and wondered if it was real or my mind fracturing. The scratches stopped, but the isolation deepened. I couldn't leave, couldn't trust the light outside. That creature had marked me, a predator in the familiar confines of home. And yet, the dread persisted, whispering that it waited, patient in the gloom. Days blurred as I pondered survival strategies, salt lines at doors, constant vigilance, each a testament to how terror reshapes daily life, turning routines into rituals of defense. That was 6 months ago, or was it? Time blurred after the creature, blending into psychological terror that eroded my grip on reality. Paranoia became my constant companion, turning every mirror, every reflection into a potential betrayal. I avoided windows, lived by clockwork routines to control the light, but control slipped like sand. The shift from physical threat to internal erosion was insidious, a gentle unraveling that mirrored the mind's fragility, peeling back layers of self-assurance one doubt at a time. The descent began subtly. I'd catch myself staring at walls, convinced eyes watched from the patterns in the paint. Helplessness crept in. Calls to friends went unanswered, my voice cracking with tales they dismissed as burnout. One afternoon, while pacing the living room, I noticed the photos on the shelf, family shots from happier days. In one, my smile looked forced, and behind me, a shadow loomed larger than it should, absent in the original memory. That discovery hit like a revelation, prompting deep reflection. Had the paranoia always been there, latent, waiting for a trigger, much like the suppressed traumas that surface in quiet moments? I recalled therapy sessions from years ago, vague anxieties dismissed as stress, now resurfacing with vicious clarity, intertwined with examples of altered perceptions and isolation experiments I'd read about online. Sensory deprivation leading to hallucinations, much like my enforced seclusion, where silence amplified inner echoes. Tension mounted over weeks. Sleep evaded me, replaced by hallucinations, whispers in the vents, footsteps echoing my own but out of step. I installed cameras, reviewing footage obsessively. At first, normal, me moving through empty rooms. Then, anomalies, a flicker where my form duplicated, one version lingering after I left frame. Loss of control terrified me most. Was I puppeteering myself, or was something else pulling strings? I scratched at my arms, drawing blood to feel something real. Each night, as the cycle repeated, I transitioned between denial and despair, reflecting on how the mind, once a fortress, becomes the battlefield, drawing from accounts of solitary confinement where inmates reported similar dissociative breaks. Stories of cabin fever in remote outposts echoed my experience, adding layers to the psychological descent, each tale a mirror to my fracturing psyche. The peak arrived in a storm of doubt. Alone in the bathroom, steam from the shower fogging the mirror, I wiped it clear. My reflection stared back, but its eyes were wrong, pinned wide, mouth-mouthing words I didn't speak. "It's inside," it said, or I thought it did. Panic surged. I smashed the glass, shards raining like accusations. Blood mixed with water, and in the fragments, countless tiny faces grinned back, all mine but not. The violence of the act shocked me into momentary clarity, but reflection followed. This was the pinnacle of self-betrayal, where psyche fractures into multiplicity, reminiscent of dissociative identity disorders I'd studied in passing, now horrifically personal. Gentle thoughts of seeking help surfaced, but isolation's grip held firm, a velvet chain binding me to my unraveling. In the shattered aftermath, I bandaged my hands and sat in silence, reflecting on how the mind turns ally to enemy. The paranoia wasn't external, it festered within, fed by isolation. But even knowing that, the whispers returned, softer, insisting I wasn't alone in my skin. 3 others reported the same thing online, anonymous posts vanishing like ghosts. None of us had met, yet our stories mirrored. Shadows, creatures, breaking minds. Coincidence? Or a shared unraveling? This connection, however fleeting, offered a bridge from utter solitude, transitioning me toward a wary hope amid the dread, a faint light in the encroaching mental fog. I wish that had been the last thread, but rules emerged from the chaos, binding the horror in rigid dread. After the mirror incident, I found the note, scrawled on my own notepad in handwriting not quite mine. Rule number 1. Never turn off the light before dawn. It was tucked under my pillow, ink fresh. Rules-based terror gripped me. Breaking them invited worse, a game I hadn't signed up for. The introduction of structure to the horror was both comforting and confining, a paradoxical shift that deepened the psychological layers, imposing order on the abyss while tightening its noose. Context built quickly. The apartment, once sanctuary, now a labyrinth of stipulations. Rule number 2. Do not speak its name aloud. What name? I didn't know, but voicing questions felt risky. Isolation peaked. I boarded windows, lived by the hum of bulbs, rationing sleep to avoid darkness. The rules multiplied, appearing on walls, in fogged glass. Rule number 3. If it knocks, count to 13 before answering. Helplessness defined me. I obeyed, terrified of the alternative. Reflecting on this, I saw parallels to ancient rituals, taboos that ward off evil, now personalized in my crumbling world, much like the binding oaths in Mesopotamian myths where words held power over spirits. Examples from folklore, fairies with their bargains, spirits bound by pacts, mirrored my plight, adding historical weight to the fear, grounding the surreal in timeless dread. Escalation layered like nightmares. Lights flickered on schedule, shadows testing boundaries. One night, a knock echoed. 3 raps, deliberate. I counted, heart pounding, but reached 12 and froze. The door creaked open anyway, a draft carrying whispers. Inside, nothing, but my shadow split, one half stepping forward independently, beckoning. I slammed it shut, reciting rules in my head to anchor sanity. The near miss prompted introspection, rules as both shield and chain, enforcing compliance in the face of the unknown, evoking the compulsive rituals in obsessive-compulsive disorders amplified by supernatural stakes. Transitions between obedience and temptation blurred, heightening the tension, each lapse a step closer to the edge. Climax shattered the fragile order. Dawn approached, but the final rule appeared. Rule number 4. To end it, stare into the abyss without blinking. The room darkened unnaturally, the entity coalescing, a vortex of shadows and whispers, demanding confrontation. Paranoia fueled my resolve. I faced it, eyes burning, as tendrils clawed at the edges of vision. It lunged, filling my lungs with cold void, but I held, unblinking, until light pierced through. In that stare down, reflections swirled, endurance as defiance, the self-reclaiming agency, much like the unyielding gazes in shamanic traditions that banish malevolent forces. The entity's retreat was hard-won, a gentle easing into tentative victory, though victory felt like a borrowed breath. The entity recoiled, dissolving with a final, echoing knock. Resolution hung uneasy, rules faded from walls, but the dread lingered. I broke the last one partially, blinked once, and survived, marked by red-veined eyes. Was it over? The note under my pillow that morning suggested not. New game begins at dusk. This lingering threat transitioned the narrative toward broader horizons, where earthly rules pale against cosmic scales, pulling the personal into the infinite. Cosmic horror wove through it all, the final thread pulling the micro-stories into existential void. What if the shadows, creatures, paranoia, and rules were fragments of something vast and different? I moved to a new city, seeking escape, but the stars mocked me, patterns shifting like living code, indifferent to my pleas. The expansion from personal to universal was profound, a gentle widening of perspective that dwarfed individual terror, rendering earthly struggles as mere flickers in the grand, uncaring expanse. It began with the sky. Nights after the rules, I stared upward, away from earthly haunts. But constellations twisted, forming faces that watched. Isolation in the cosmos hit hard. Humanity a speck. Horrors mere symptoms of greater chaos. Escalation, dreams of endless black, where I floated, shadows birthing universes of teeth and eyes. Reflections on insignificance flooded me. Philosophers like Lovecraft, whose works I'd skimmed, now resonated deeply, their eldritch visions aligning with my fragmented nights. Examples of astronomical anomalies, black holes devouring light, paralleled my inner voids, scientific wonders twisted into harbingers of oblivion. Peak. On a clear night, the sky split, a rift pulsing with otherworldly hunger. I felt it pull, loss of control absolute, as if reality unraveled. Resolution. I closed my eyes, reflecting on insignificance. The rift sealed, but dread unresolved. I am but a shadow in the infinite. Last night, the stars whispered my name. In this vastness, all prior horrors converged, a tapestry of dread where personal and cosmic entwine eternally, leaving no escape from the encroaching void. Word count, 3133.